It's been a busy spring, as you may know if you've tried to call me. I got about 45 messages on my office phone and at least that many on my cell phone that I still haven't returned calls for. So if you called me, I will get back to you as soon as I can. But it's one of those springs where we're just really super busy. And this time of year, it's that nice, we're starting to warm up, but the soil's still kind of cool. And this is the perfect time to be planting roses. And so we're going to go out here and we're going to plant some roses. So let's go out and we're going to plant them right here at the office. And it's not the ideal place, but we'll talk about that as we go. All right. Now, the first part about planting roses is getting a good one from the nursery in the first place, or the store you buy. You want to look for any kind of signs of disease, anything that looks like that just doesn't look right. And we look here and we see that this has a brown on this stem. And when they pruned this off, they were hoping this, if you remember from our pruning session, they were hoping this bud here would take off, and it didn't. So after we get it planted, we're going to come in here, we're going to prune this off a little bit lower. That's no big deal. And the same thing over here. We got a little bit of dead spot where they pruned it in the wrong place. Pruned it a little bit high. We can prune that off and whatnot. And then look at the tag. Now, we obviously have a problem here because this tag says climbing gold showers and our flowers are pink. So this tag probably does not go with this rose, but this is the tag that was on it. So then you might just say, well, I'm not going to pay attention to the tag. You know. Looking at this one, this looks like it's going to be a hybrid tea bush rose instead of a climbing rose. So I'm going to take it anyway, and whatnot. And you need some potting mix, a little bit of potting mix, a shovel, and a strong back and a weak mind to do this. So let's go on outside and we'll get started. Okay, one of the things you want to do is get a site that roses like sun, and so you want to make sure you get a place that has plenty of sun. They usually tell us not to plant on the north side of a house. That's where all my roses at home are planted. I like to have a little bit of shade because when it gets really hot, it's just really hot on roses and hard on them. And here I usually like to kill off the grass before we plant it, but we're going to dig us a hole here. And one of the things we want to do is, okay, that plant's about one shovel deep, so that's about how deep we want to dig that hole. And the other thing is you want to go a little bit deeper, a little bit wider, about a third again wider than the plant is. Now, when you're planting bare root plants, it's a little bit different. And I'll show you how to plant this one, then we'll dig it up and we'll plant it as bare root just to show you the difference. Okay? And we'll hope that you want soil that has good drainage, which is sometimes hard to find here. And you want a place out of the wind, which is definitely hard to find here. we're going to take this and okay. Now when you're planting a container plant, what you want to do is you want to plant the crown just a little bit lower than the dirt. So we got a little bit more digging to do. And the other thing that they don't recommend, I do a little bit different. I didn't bring any with me today. But you want to get a high phosphate fertilizer. Something with a large middle number, 11540, 060, something like that. I put 1/4 cup of that fertilizer down here in the bottom, deeper than the plant's going to be. Then I put a little bit of dirt on top of that fertilizer. I also like to put a little iron in there too, if I can. Then on a potted plant, you want to knock it loose, bring it completely out. Now, if we look at the bottom of this plant, we can see that the roots are matted there. That means that plant's been in the pot for a while. So then we just pull out our knife. We cut some of these roots on the side like that, and that way those roots will spread out. Okay, and we're going to plant that about that deep. So put a little dirt down there in the bottom, a little bit more dirt, and then I like to add a little bit of good compost material or good organic matter. And I take that about 1/3. I take that, and before I put it in the plant, I take and mix this soil all up so it's all good and uniform. You don't want to create layers. What I see a lot of people do is we tell them put about 1/3 organic matter, and they'll put some dirt, and then they'll put organic matter, and then put some dirt, put some organic matter, and that causes a layering in the soil, and the water won't penetrate that. It'll go down to that layer and stop and spread out, and then go down and stop and spread out. If you can take and mix that soil together with your organic matter, that's a lot better, you know. And then we take and pack that soil around there. I like to, at this point, I like to go get the hose or a bucket. Let's go get a hose and a bucket, and we'll put some water around there. Okay, so let's go get that. I forgot to bring that out. Oh, mind if I take this? It's a little expensive, but it's cheaper in the long run because you'll actually get plant response, where the other stuff you just spend the money and put it in the ground and nothing happens. So Miller's Ferri Plus, it's the right iron for our area. We've done studies up here at the Ag Science Center comparing it, Ironite, and a bunch of others, and we get the best response for the return on using Miller's Ferri Plus. Follow the label directions, mix it up in a 5-gallon bucket of water, pour it around the plant, and it should respond. Then 2 to 4 days. Okay. You know, it's a lot easier to plant plants where you got a hose, but we're going to use the tried and true method of carrying a bucket. And what we want to do while you're putting soil around the roots of a plant, and this same thing's true whether you're planting a tree or a rose bush. It's all pretty much the same way. And you want to get the moisture down there so that you get all the big air voids. Now you don't want all the air out of the soil, but you want to get the big voids out of the soil where so you don't have any just big air gaps in there. You know, I always tell people we got to get the air out of the soil, and when I was doing a talk on on soil and talk about the fact that you need to have air in your soil. They said, but you tell us to take all the air out. So that's when I figured out I need to reword that and say you want to take all the air voids out. You take the soil that we've mixed up real good, just get it all the way around, and that should make you a good rose bush for a number of years. We're just going to let that soak down a little bit. Let's go get the pruning shears out of the truck and we'll prune off those two stubs that we need to get pruned off. This is going to put a lot of flowers out of here. Left the pruners in the truck, and they've already been sanitized, so we don't have to worry about doing that. You know, we're going on to now well over 6 months without any water. So we got to make sure that when we plant these plants, we're planting plants that are in the right spot. That when we put water on them, we'll get a return on investment for not only the money we spend on the plant, but also for the water that we put on that plant. That's going to be more and more important every day. In fact, I just we did a session last night with our master gardeners on rainwater harvesting and how to collect rainwater off your roof, store it, and have it for your garden. And we calculated out that you can use that collecting rainwater off your roof here in Carlsbad, New Mexico. You can supply about 1/4 to 20 to 50% of your water needs for your landscape, and that's pretty good. You know, it saves you money, and it's a really good effort. There's some really good references on that on the internet. You go to Texas rainwater harvesting. There's a publication by Texas A&M. And it's a fantastic publication. It's about 90 pages. It tells you more about rainwater harvesting than you'll ever want to know. But it has some good ideas in it. So, and that's something that we really need to think about as we develop municipal and county and government buildings, is because it's real easy to include a rainwater harvesting design in the initial design of a building. And you think of our large public buildings like our building here. I mean, we have a lot of roof space and not a lot of yard, so we could probably supply 100% of our irrigation water off our roof with a good properly designed rainwater harvester. Back in 1970 when they built this building, they weren't thinking things like that. But as we do things in the future, Texas Instruments over in Dallas, they supply 100% of the water needs with rainwater harvesting, except for potable drinking water. And on their new building, they designed it that way, and so that's really pretty good. You know, poured out up here. You know, rose isn't going to cause a lot of problems with the roots going underneath the foundation of the building. But what was here originally was a big old pine tree that it hit the roof up here, so it couldn't get out. It was stifled in this little spot. When it was planted in 1970, it probably was a good place for it because it's probably about that tall. But it was really the wrong plant in the wrong place. So in an area like this, you want something that's going to be small. It'll grow up to get about this tall, and it'll supply some shade on those windows to cut down the amount of heat that's in the windows. But the roots won't go under and destroy the foundation like we see so often. Okay, we want to cut at a 45-degree angle, and we're going to cut it off right there. And I went too low. I cut off my flower. Oh well, I'll give it to my secretary. She'll enjoy it. But see, all this tissue up here was dead. All this tissue here was dead, so it was going to die back there and kill this branch anyway. So we just go a little bit below that, and it should be all right. here's the other one. I'm going to do the same thing. Into that, and we took off this branch here, but again, see, you have this dead tissue, and that's just diseased tissue that you don't want to see continue on your plant, so we've gotten rid of that. So now we should have a healthy plant. That plant should live there for, oh, at least 50, 75 years. You know? And we're gonna check our, kind of pat that around there and get that just a little bit deeper. Now, like I said, with a potted rose, one that comes in a pot, you want that crown just about an inch below ground level. Okay, with a bare root rose, it's just the opposite. You want it right at ground level. You don't want it below ground level. You know. So a little more soil around there. And I usually tell people to wear gloves. I got so much calluses on my hands it doesn't really matter, but roses are thorny and they will stick you. And then we'll put a little bit more water around there. And that should do it. Pick up our trash. And that's the way you plant a rose that came in a pot. Okay, well, that's how you plant a plant that comes in a pot. Now, bare root plants are a lot cheaper. You can buy them for $2 to $5 at a lot of garden stores. So a lot of people want to plant bare root plants. A couple of things about bare root plants. Same thing as the other ones. Go in there and look for diseased tissue, diseased plant material, and things that you may not want. Make sure the label fits the plant that you have. But also you want to make sure that the roots are moist. If the roots have dried out, find another plant, because if the roots are dry out, that plant's going to die. And so try, and I always tell people, if you're going to go with bare roots, watch the stores, and when you know that if they come in on Monday, you get down there Monday and get those bare root plants as soon as you can. If you wait till next Saturday, those roots could have dried out, and if you don't have time to plant it, you can plant it in a pot and then plant it just like we just did the potted plant, because that's what nurseries do. They bring them in as bare roots, they plant them in pots, they get them growing good, and then they sell them. So the same deal, you have to, I would have killed all this stuff off with Roundup, get rid of this grass, but we're going to dig a hole right here again, and we want it to be a pretty good sized hole. You know, and you know, you can use a big handled shovel. You don't have to use a little army shovel like this. That just happens to be what I had in my pickup today. I always carry one around just in case I need it. You know, we want to get the soil off those roots. And throw that over, and we'll throw that in the dumpster so that it will die. With the bare root, you want to plant just a little. You want the crown to be right at ground level. And I've been asked a dozen times why that is. And all I can say is that the American Rose Society says that's the way to plant the two different kinds. And there's got to be a good reason, but I don't know what it is. So, you know, the experts are the American Rose Society. If you really want to know about, there's the only thing that has more varieties than roses is tomatoes. And, we can show you how to plant tomatoes here in a little bit too. I just happen to have a few in my office that we started. Okay, you pull this out. You want to look at it. We got good moist roots here. Right here's the crown. The roots grow down. The plant comes up, and right here's the graft where they grafted the variety onto this rootstock. And right here's the original root. And we want to make sure that doesn't get below ground, because if that gets below ground, you'll get spuckers that will be the original type plant. So yeah, we're about the right depth. I'll put that back there to keep the moisture. And then what you want to do is you want to build kind of a cone here in the middle. Okay, and then what I'd like to do then is I don't have any with me, but I put about a quarter cup of O60 fertilizer and a little bit of Miller's iron sulfate, iron plus. Then you come down here, and usually with bare root plants we get a little more roots. This is not a real good plant. It doesn't have as much roots as I'd like to have it, but you usually have a little stemmier roots. We want to spread those out over that cone so they grow out and around. Okay, now we mix up we mix up our soil just like we did last time. And we plant that around just and tamp that dirt down, get it good and deep. And I gotta go get another bucket of water. But the main difference is you gotta put that cone in the middle when you're doing bare roots. You want to spread those roots out good, and you want to bring the crown up and make it ground level instead of planting a little bit below ground. And you know, I buy my wife a rose bush every Mother's Day, and I told her, I said, this way I'm giving you dozens and dozens of roses instead of just a few. And they give year after year, you know. So she's got fresh roses every year, and it also beautifies the house and that type of thing. So, you know, and that's also harder for them to throw at you when you plant it in the ground. So, there you go. A little water around there. Let that soak in. Take our organic matter, mix it up in there a little bit better. You know. And then we just put that soil in and around there. You know, gardening's not even fun unless you get muddy and you get your hands dirty. When I was a kid, my mom used to yell at me for getting dirty. I said, but Mom, I'm going to be a farmer. You know, that's good and wet. We just work that around there like that. And I'm going to steal some dirt from over here. Because we want to get that dirt up to the top of that crown to support that crown. And see, we're still up here and our ground's right here, so we still got some more dirt to add. And it doesn't hurt. I mean, you can plant that crown a little bit high. Sometimes you realize, say, hey, you know, I got that in the ground already. I already got my roots all spread out. I got it good and packed. That crown's just a little bit high. Well, don't worry about it. Just bring the dirt up around the crown. Make the dirt that high. There we go. And that should make a pretty rose. And one thing about dirt, it will always wash off. If you ever have any questions about this or anything, we have a number of publications that you can get offline, or come by our office and pick it up, or you can call me at 887-6595. If you catch me in the office, I'll be glad to answer your calls. And if you get sent to my voicemail, it may be 3 or 4 days before I get back to you, but I will call you back. All right? These buds here are about ready to bloom, and you can see these are actually bracts on the outside. That won't be petals. They'll pull down here and then it'll come out, and the petals will be like this. But inside here, this right here, those long ones, those long yellow things, those are stamen, and then right down here in the middle is a pistil. And the pollen from the stamen will pollinate the pistil there, or the ovaries, and this part here is where the ovary is, and that ovary will develop seeds, and you can actually start rose bushes from seed if you want to. And it's kind of fun to try. I've never been successful at it, but I've tried it a number of times, and that's one of the things to do. And a lot of people don't realize too, roses are edible and whatnot, are often used to make potpourri or perfume, and even some teas. That's why they're called a hybrid tea rose. But the petals are actually edible, and you can eat them, put them in your salad, and they're not all that bad.